Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite with Jon Pollock and Wai Ting. Coming at you, live in living color. How are you, Wai?
Doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just finished the finale of Loki. Holy crap. Did not see that ending coming.
Yeah, wow. You watched it. You actually had time to catch it, eh?
No, I didn't. I'm 2 episodes behind, so I'll get to it in the coming days.
It was quite the finale.
It was a bit. When did you watch it? Did you watch it? Were you one of those like ready when it dropped, or did you get around to it today? What was your viewing of Loki?
Earlier this morning, you know.
Okay.
Part of it is like me just having enough energy, staying up that late to watch it. I'd probably fall asleep even if it was a really great episode.
What time do they usually release them? Is it 3, 4 in the morning?
Midnight on the West Coast, so 3 a.m. for us.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, I just caught it this afternoon, and because I still want to like engage in, I just don't want to be spoiled, and I do want to engage in some of the discussion. So I'd like to catch them a bit earlier. I'll probably watch it again before we do MCU later tomorrow night.
I wonder if John Cena was spoiled in his text messaging.
I don't know. I'm not sure. That's an ongoing rivalry he has between WH Park to see who can fake spoil the other first. Because they've been exchanging constantly fake spoilers. So we'll find out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, we can find out what the man spoiled. Thursday night, a live edition of MCU Later. It's going to be MCU Live right now on Thursday night with WH and Wai Ting.
Yeah, maybe like MCU
now.
Live now. Sure. Okay, that works for me.
I see you now. It really defeats the whole play on words, but we're trying.
We'll work on it. But you might have a lot of MCU to catch up on this week because
it's too much.
You got to watch both editions of Loki, and then sometime this weekend you got to watch Black Widow because we'll be doing.
I got to watch Black Widow for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I got to drop $35 for this thing as well, man. Disney Plus. I'm so glad that at least I'm going to help Disney get through this pandemic. That they're going to be okay. I think Disney will make it. So I'm happy to help with my $35 to make sure that they can keep the lights on at Disney.
You got to help the little guys. So
I really do. Yes.
Thank you for that. But yeah, at some point this weekend, Jon Pollock will watch Black Widow, and he will be joining me and WH Park to review Black Widow on the Patreon next Tuesday. So I'm really excited to have you there.
Yes. For this week's Patreon show, we've got the 1992 Royal Rumble that is up. Seems to be a show many people enjoyed. And no kidding, like an incredible piece of feedback that we got. We got some really great feedback on the show, but one in particular really stands out. But we have 2+ hours looking at the show from January of 1992 when Ric Flair tossed over Sid Justice, spoiler alert, 29 years later. And then Ric Flair climbed to the top turnbuckle and performed a coffin drop onto a box with Hulk Hogan inside after The Undertaker put him there.
Really ahead of his time. Yeah, that Ric Flair.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
I would love to have seen 92 Ric Flair versus 2021 Darby Allin.
You know what? What about 2021 Ric Flair versus 2021 Darby Allin? I think
that could be something too. I mean, we know that Ric Flair can take a vertical suplex into a body of water, so you can start from there. We know he can at least take a water bump. Yeah. So go check that out. A fun show, even including the Beverly Brothers versus the Bushwhackers.
Well, I certainly enjoyed it. I mean, it seems to be a show that like really resonates with our particular generation of fans, and really anybody who I think remembers that period. So do check that out.
Do check it out and leave us feedback on the forum, because as everyone knows, I love compliments. What else is going on this week, Wai? We've got SmackDown Friday night, Slammiversary post show on Saturday with Davey Portman and John Cena. And then Sunday night, more of us, right after Money in the Bank, where we will be chatting about live fans reacting to WWE wrestling, as we will Friday.
It's a big day. It's a big pay-per-view. They specifically moved this one up so that it could be in front of audiences. So I look forward to seeing the presentation of the crowd, seeing how these crowds will react to a lot of these people that we haven't seen them react to. But, you know, speaking about Money in the Bank, did you know that Up Next had a surprise Money in the Bank game today?
No, I did not.
I haven't seen it yet myself, but apparently on Twitch, they surprised their panel. They brought on a panel to do like a top 5 Money in the Bank, and they sprung on a game for them. So they did like graphics and all that stuff too. So really getting to the Money in the Bank festivities, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a lot going on.
So there was a winner? Was there someone that left with a Up Next briefcase?
Yeah, somebody got a shot at a title match against Braden, I suppose, for their SummerSlam game. I haven't watched it, so I have no idea who won.
All right, well, go check that out. They've also got a new edition of Up Next, chatting about Tuesday night's episode. We'll talk a little bit about that. But before we forget, I do want to plug that on Saturday, Martin Bushby is doing his 12-hour live stream. This is a really great cause that he is doing this for. And not just myself, but Wai Ting will also be part of this on Saturday.
Yeah, he'll be going from 7 a.m. Eastern time. Is that correct? 12 p.m.
I think so.
British Standard Time. But that would be 7 a.m. here on the East Coast in our time zone. I'm going to be joining him at 2 o'clock. So he'll be about, 7 hours in. Wow. That's insane. How's this guy going to be like by the 5th hour, much less the 7th?
Oh yeah, I'm coming in like well into it, so he might be a mess by the time I come on, so that should be fun. All of the information, including the live link, and if you care to donate to the Children's Heart Surgery Fund, I've pinned that information on my Twitter account, so if you want to go check that out, I am John Pollock on Twitter. You can get all the info there for Saturday's 12-hour live stream, hosted by Martin Bushby, the bravest man in podcasting.
I think Benno will be joining him for at least most of it, if not even all of it. So I think I'll just have it on in the background throughout my day.
All right. Well, there you go. That'll be fun. You should, we will see how Martin's holding up by hour number 11.
Yeah. It'll be great. That accent is going to be all over the place. It'll be like a Russian accent by the end.
Well, that's part of the fun. He's going to span the globe with all accents. All of that information, once again, can be found, we should put a thing up on the site as well. I'll get around to that this day. But lots of people in the post wrestling community will be stopping by over the course of these 12 hours. Let us move on now to a couple of news and notes from the past couple of days. And this one came out on Tuesday, which would appear to kind of bring an end to this story, kind of abruptly out of nowhere. And that is Samantha Tavel, aka performer Candy Cartwright, has dropped her lawsuit against Matt Riddle. This was the civil suit that had been filed last October. And if you remember, this was filed in Illinois and had initially named Matt Riddle, WWE, an unnamed co-founder of Evolve, which we would learn was Gabe Sapolsky, and Evolve were all defendants. And this was an enormous suit. She was seeking $10 million from each of the defendants and had alleged that multiple sexual assaults had been committed by Riddle and that he had bragged about them, and alleging that the promotions, Evolve and WWE, had in fact approved of these assaults on Samantha Tavel, and that her bookings were affected by just this whole involvement with Riddle. In time, Sapolsky and Evolve were dropped from the suit, and then Tuesday it ended up that she was dropping it completely. There was TMZ was the one who reported on this and stated that there's no knowledge of any kind of monetary settlement, but it's being closed with prejudice, meaning this is not something where she can revisit this and refile down the road. So in theory, this would bring an end to this whole suit. And it's not, I don't know if there's going to be any kind of specific language that Tavel can ever talk about this, or if Riddle is ever going to choose to talk about this. But this very well may be kind of the conclusion of this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as somebody who's simply a fan looking from the outside, it's very difficult for me to be able to comment on how.
It's what, like, we can only go based on the information that was out there. I mean, she made the allegations. Riddle, you remember he posted that video. He acknowledged that he had an affair with this woman, but denied any sexual assault allegations. So that's kind of where it is. This happened. WWE went ahead. They brought Riddle up to SmackDown, and he has been a prominently featured performer this whole time. And they obviously felt that confidence in using Riddle. So that's really all you can say is like what's out there, and that this is not going to progress any further. If you're looking for either side to get their day in court, it looks like that will not be the case.
Yeah. I mean, do we know? Do you know anything about like how this resolution or lack thereof was reached? Was there any sort of settlement attached to it or anything?
I mean, that's like, we're going on this TMZ report. They do not know if there was a monetary settlement. So, I mean, it would be pure speculation about how this was arrived at. You just don't know. Like, if there was a settlement, I mean, the fact is, like, when there's a lawsuit, whatever side you're on, I mean, that is something that is lingering over you. I don't think, anyone wants to be a part of that, and that can certainly weigh on people. But I do not know what led to this being dropped, other than this was made. And it seems like it was, Samantha Tavel opting to drop the suit, and again, with prejudice. Another story, this is, not a pleasant one either. This was first reported on Wednesday by WrestlingNews.co by reporter Angel Rodriguez, revealing that Michael Elgin, real name Aaron Frobel, had been arrested last month after allegedly violating a protective order from his ex-fiancée. The couple had been together since last June and then broke up in April. And the woman had stated that she had left the relationship. They had been living together and sought out this protective order, which was issued back in May, citing, a whole list of verbal abuse in public, in private, monitoring her, sexual caretaking, pressure to engage in sex acts that she had expressed not wanting to do, insulting, shaming, intimidation. So this order of protection was granted, and then she alleged that this had been broken multiple times, with Elgin trying to contact her. She stated through different aliases, by email, tried to contact her mother by email. And so it's just a really, unpleasant story involved here. Elgin has not commented on any of this, and we'll see where this progresses further. But this, if you want to go and read the entire incident report, it is linked to in the story that we have up on the website and the WrestlingNews.co site. They obtained the incident report that has all of the specific details that she has alleged. And her name was redacted as well. So that's why I'm referring to she as the female in this story. But it's obviously not a pleasant story at all involving Michael Elgin. NXT news we will move over to next. Coming out of Tuesday night, we saw Mandy Rose appear on the program. And it's since been learned, this was first reported by PW Insider, and I was told the same, that Mandy Rose is now considered a full-time member of the NXT roster. It was a curious move, Way, because Mandy Rose was certainly not written out of anything on Raw, and I guess we'll wait to see if she has any more appearances on Raw, but it seems like she has been shifted to NXT, and in theory, that would mean the tag team with Dana Brooke is done.
I would say that the news was surprising, but I mean, it seems like this kind of constant flip flopping between talents from NXT to WWE main roster. It goes both ways now. Just as abruptly as we saw, Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox move up to the main roster, we're seeing just as abrupt of a change for Mandy Rose. So maybe some sort of switching going on here. Maybe, in the back they're like, hey, you want to just take one of our guys? Well, then we want to take one of your guys too. Whatever. It's pro wrestling. They'll write stories around it to explain it. I think for Mandy Rose, this is a very, very positive move. Contractually, I don't know. Monetarily, I don't know if that anything changes for her, but at least in terms of character development, in terms of her being able to build herself as a wrestler and also as a performer backstage, I think it can only be a good move, because she wasn't really doing a whole lot in that match with Dana Brooke. Her character work was all over the place. She had a really high mark, I would say, with the Otis storyline and then with the Sonya Deville storyline. But ever since she's come to Raw, it's been nothing. It's been a real regression. So I hope NXT is where she could reinvent herself.
Yeah, possible. I think it's just, it just seemed like for weeks they'd been building towards this tag title match with Natalya and Tamina, and it looks like we're not even going to get there. There really isn't a point now to do it. And I guess the next question is, with Dana Brooke, how do they shift her around? I get, does she get thrown into another team? Is she just on her own on Raw? So those questions, I guess we will see on programming in the weeks to come. And then in regards to NXT, over the next couple of weeks, there's going to be it's going to be shuffled around a bit. It appears that the program is going to be airing on Syfy for July 27th and August 4th. And now next week, they are going to be doing a live show on Tuesday. And then I was told that on the Wednesday, they're going to be taping both the July 27th and August 4th episodes. So that's apparently what the schedule is going to be for next week. And PW Insider had reported on this. So it looks like the Olympics are going to have some impact on NXT, at least on the USA Network. And it looks like 2 weeks where it will be taped for the 27th and August 4th. But Tuesday night's episode, this coming from Brandon Thurston, did 705,000 viewers, a 0.19 in the 18 to 49 demo, which was their best 18 to 49 number since June 8th and best viewership figure since May 4th. So getting out of, we're not exactly done the NBA Finals, but they weren't going against that on Tuesday. It seems that NXT, at least above the 700,000 viewer mark. But what did you think of the episode overall, specifically Karrion Kross and Johnny Gargano, which was the big match on the show Tuesday?
I thought it was a good episode. Obviously not as strong as last week's, pay-per-view level type of show, but I thought it was a pretty solid episode. I really like Johnny Wrestling versus Karrion Kross. The match actually went, a little bit shorter than I expected, but it felt like it was the Johnny Wrestling of old, and building up to a Samoa Joe match, like more than ever.
I think that was pretty clear. I mean, that to me is like, there is no doubt now that they are doing Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe Samoa Joe and a bunch of other guys too. They're really teasing matches with everybody. What do you think of the match?
I liked it. It was fine. Didn't blow me away. Certainly this was not at the level of last week's show, but that to me was one of the better NXT episodes this year. But fine for what it was. I would say for the rest of it, Duke Hudson feels like he is Captain America. That is the exact template that Duke Hudson is going for.
Like Steve Rogers or Captain America?
Steve Rogers, maybe.
What, just as in like, in terms of size or in terms of just personality?
I just get that whole kind of, I think they are taking different elements of what they see in Drew McIntyre with Steve Rogers, and your combination is Duke Hudson. I was very surprised. Actually, I shouldn't say I was surprised he won, but I totally thought that I was not expecting him to actually win the match.
Okay. I mean, judging by his size, I think the amount of the amount of time they give him, just based on his entrance and also what he had last week. I mean, the tall guys are always going to at least get a leg up, and especially if you're a tall guy who can have some form of personality and is at least decent in the ring, you're going to have a lot of chances. So I don't know if I see this guy winning the whole thing, but I wasn't too surprised that he beat Paul Rickham and Jiro here. What did you think?
I think Jiro is great, though. I think he's, you know what, you're right that he really doesn't need this tournament, but he's a really enjoyable character.
Fun, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the ceiling is for a guy like that, beyond maybe like kind of being your friendly, like fun little opening act. But within NXT, we've seen that like varying success, as far as how they can push people at that level. So maybe something for him down the line. What did you think of the Cameron Grimes LA Knight skit?
I was not surprised that Grimes is going to be great in these. I think LA Knight plays off him very well. They're very much in the same style of, David Von Erich and Jimmy Garvin. I mean, it was a classic story in World Class where Garvin had to go onto the ranch and pretty much be in the same role that Grimes is. They were fine for like week one. I do worry by the end of seeing 3 of them on Tuesday night. Like, are they going to be able to go to the well week after week with these?
I would say maybe 2 weeks max, and next week needs to be even more creative than I would say this week does. But I love it whenever they can have wrestlers get out of the arena, whether it be get out of the backstage, like, show me how these guys live. And in particular, I actually feel like LA Knight came across really well in these segments. He comes across like, a rather natural actor in these scenarios. And to me, came across like a bigger star just through his presence in these sketches.
Yeah, Grimes was very funny in them, especially the callback after, right at the end where he falls in the water. Can I get you a towel, sir? He was very good in these. I enjoyed Grimes quite a bit. They briefly explain that Shotzi Blackheart, her contract has been picked up by SmackDown. So that was it. Ember Moon was on her own. And that's it. The team is done.
Do you think we even get a mention of Mandy Rose on Monday?
No, I'm going to guess not.
Right.
It does seem like when they make these moves, that's it. They're done. I don't know if we're going to do the usual where you finish up on your other show, even though it would make sense to do so. But
it doesn't seem like Toni Storm even will be finishing her feud with Saray here.
That's a great point. There was no mention of Toni Storm here.
Yeah, well, they mentioned her briefly, like in the back, but basically it was like she's gone. Like it was Gigi Dolan setting up the challenge to Saray and then ultimately losing. And then we had Mandy Rose actually come out to scout. So maybe Mandy Rose picking up where what is it? Oh man, I forget her. Toni Storm left off.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll just have Mandy Rose. It certainly seems she's going to be injected into that story with Jessie Kamea, Frankie Monet, and Robert Stone, whatever they're going to do there. Or maybe they'll just have Mandy scouting different people. You don't really know what she's going to be doing in NXT, and then shoot the angle with her in time. Just
go out there and look. And that's basically what you can do with anybody if you don't know what you're going to do story-wise for him yet. What we did get a tease of was the next challenger for Raquel Gonzalez in Xia Li.
Yeah, they're going to do that next week. They announced that. They announced Kushida and Bobby Fish against Roderick Strong and Tyler Rust. And though we don't have a date, it looks like Adam Cole's got Bronson Reed, and they pretty much made it pretty clear that they're going to get to the rubber match between Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. So the race is on to see who has more matches this year, Cole and O'Reilly or Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Though the injury might put a halt to Poirier and McGregor getting another one in this year.
Yeah, wow. It would be quite the year. A whole trilogy of fights within the span of a year in MMA, that feels incredibly rare.
If they were not hurt, I think that, well, I mean, the fact that there was the injury, I think that very much leaves the door open to do the next fight. Although, the figure that's being reported, I think that blasts the door open as their reason to continue that, because the number out there that John Orand has is 1.8 million buys for UFC 264, which had just an astonishing 500,000, or at least close to it, in international buys, which is just like unheard of when you hear the amount of buys they did internationally. But that's about almost 1.3 that they did on ESPN Plus. So this is bigger than the second fight. The question would be, would the fourth fight top this number, do you think? Or do you think this is the peak number that McGregor and Poirier could do?
It's an interesting question because, I would argue that more people are even aware of this rivalry coming out of this one and, the rather graphic nature that it ended. So you might spark some more curiosity. But on the other hand, I mean, are people going to see this as much of as balanced of a match as maybe, this last one was when they do it again? And will that deter people? My gut tells me that it'll do better. Like, I think Conor fighting is still a spectacle. And if you give people enough of a story to want to watch him, avenge a loss, even if his chances may not be realistic, I think people will still want to watch it.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be gigantic. Even if it comes up short of this number, you're still talking about one of the biggest fights in UFC history.
And Conor will talk it up, like even more so this time.
I guess my argument would be that Conor against just about anyone, and you have no shortage of people, especially if you were to include welterweight, that's going to have that attention, and doing another fight with Dustin Poirier and a similar outcome, which is what I'm very confident would happen. Like, over time, is there an accumulation that is going to impact Conor McGregor in the eyes of a lot of people? That do we protect Conor in the sense of not so much protect, but to me, this next fight with Dustin, it's about a foregone conclusion. Like, we have got the answer to this puzzle. Is there a better business reason to put him against somebody else that at least it's a new opponent and more of a winnable fight for Conor McGregor that long term is going to be more impactful?
But in MMA, you never know. You could put him.
No, it's not a guarantee, but I would say it's about as close to a guarantee that this rivalry is not turning around for Conor McGregor.
When I say you never know, I actually meant if you put Conor into a lesser opponent, he could still lose. He could,
yeah. And that's the question we don't know. He's had so much inactivity that against a number 5 or 6 lightweight, has the game caught up to him? Like, he's still a high level striker, and I think you can still see that in the opening minutes, but his best strikes have not been able to finish Dustin Poirier, and I don't think that this is the Conor McGregor of several years ago.
I believe there is audience interest in a rematch, and by putting Conor against somebody else and having him lose, you risk being further away from that rematch. So why not make the obvious money you can right now? And to me, I think Conor is going to be the type of combat sports athlete that'll still do incredible numbers even with a losing record, or at least not as good of a record as he used to have. So I say do this rematch.
Are you aware of the bet that has been made between Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley?
Oh no, please tell me.
So at Tuesday's press conference, Jake Paul put Tyron Woodley on the spot. He said, "Hey, if you're so confident, Woodley, let's agree now that if I beat you, you have to get 'I love Jake Paul' tattooed on you, and you have to put it out on your Instagram. And if I lose, I will get 'I love Tyron Woodley' tattooed on me and put it on my Instagram." And dude, Woodley was, you could tell Woodley was like, I don't know if I want to make this bet. He goes to he's like to the crowd, "What do you think?" Jake's like, "Come on, you don't have any confidence in yourself." And Tyron's like, "Okay, it's on."
Oh my goodness.
He agreed. He had to agree to it. He was put on the spot on the stage in front of everyone. And it's like, dude, Tyron Woodley can win this fight. It is not out of the realm of possibility.
Is he the underdog?
I think he is. I haven't looked at the odds lately. I think when the fight was announced, he was the underdog. But dude, Jake Paul towers over this guy. He is much taller than I envisioned him being. And for all you want to say, like, Tyron Woodley, very good striker in MMA. This guy's not done boxing. And it's, this is still a level above Ben Askren, but I mean, I wouldn't be taking that bet.
Okay, so I'm just looking at an article from the 21st. So the odds may have changed by now, but as of the 21st, Paul was a -138 to Woodley's +100. So, I mean, very close, but still, yeah, if a tattoo was on the line. Woodley had to take it. Come on, please. Like, did they say where they have to get tattooed?
I think they can choose. I don't think they specified where it has to be.
Like, it could be like this tiny, like on the bottom of my foot. Like, that would count.
I guess that will be the.
That'd be a weak.
I mean,
way
he could have really put it up there and said, block letters Times New Roman on your chest.
Yeah, multiple colors. I mean, Jesus, like these Paul brothers are like really excellent at this game because they've got me interested in this ridiculous fight just for a stupid reason like that. Great, awesome, it's entertainment.
Yeah. The other thing that Jake Paul has done is that the image of Conor McGregor where he gets beat and he's got his hand up next to his head. This is when he lost to Poirier the second time.
Yes.
Or he lost the fight in January.
Uh-huh.
So this image of Conor down on the ground with his hand onto his head, Jake Paul got $100,000 necklace made with this image. And he's going to give it to Dustin Poirier to, I guess, auction for his foundation.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
You definitely have to see this.
I'm looking at this necklace. It is quite the incredible piece of jewelry.
Your search ability is very quick.
I typed Jake Paul necklace and it's right there, man. That is hilarious. Yeah, honestly, the more I hear about these Paul brothers, the more I go from completely being disgusted that they are at all involved in the combat sports world to having a great amount of respect for their promoting abilities. This was really creative, whatever all this stuff. It's on the one hand completely obnoxious, but on the other hand very effective. Which is, I mean, look at their YouTube careers. Exactly that.
I think you're going to end up watching this fight. I think you will.
There's a good chance. Yeah, sure.
It's a Sunday night boxing card again.
Yeah, wow. Well, we gave it plenty of promotion to our audience on this show.
We clearly have. And the last thing here is several fights that have been made for the September pay-per-view for UFC 266. It's going to feature 2 title fights. They're going to do Alexander Volkanovski and Brian Ortega, who were supposed to fight in March, and then Volkanovski got COVID, and they delayed the fight, allowing both to be the coaches of the current season of The Ultimate Fighter that I know you're following each week, Wai. And so the fight will now happen September 25th in Vegas. The other title fight is Valentina Shevchenko against Lauren Murphy. And, I mean, Murphy will be a big underdog in that fight, but she's also won a number of fights. I believe she's won her last 5 to get this title fight. But the big fight is going to be a 5-round non-title fight between Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler that we talked about the other night that appears to be official now. A rematch that the first fight occurred in April of 2004.
Wow. How old was Julia Hart?
Julia Hart would have been 2 years old.
2 or 3?
2.
2, okay.
She was born in late 2001, I believe.
This is how we measure time here at Post Wrestling Now.
She was 2 years old, and now she's on national television with AEW.
It's insane. Wow.
That's crazy. That fight, dude, took place 3 weeks after WrestleMania 20.
Wow.
It was the first Tito Chuck fight.
They were on the undercard. Long time. Wow.
A long time ago. All right. All of your news can be found at postwrestling.com. We're now moving on over to Fyter Fest Night 1 of 2 from my favorite wrestling city in the world, Cedar Park, Texas, at the HEB Center. I think there were over 4,500 people here at this show. They announced it as a sellout. This was one of the best crowds of the year. This was unbelievable.
Can we say the best crowd of the year? Like how?
I'm fine saying that. I was just hedging my bets here, but because the year's not over. There were so many people on this show that felt like the biggest stars in wrestling.
I'm just trying to think who they're competing with. I mean, it's not much of a contest, is it?
You know, the first half of Double or Nothing was pretty incredible at Daly's Place.
Yeah, but you can't give an award to half a crowd.
You know, this crowd was here from start to finish. They were pretty great. I mean, they dipped a little at certain points in the show, but pretty much this was a red hot crowd, and this was such a fun 2-hour show. For
the next pandemic, they need to just record this audio, save all these MP3s so that you can get ready.
Yes. They should be, they could can this and use it the next time Hulk Hogan causes Sid to be eliminated and the crowd cheers for Sid.
Or the next time Hulk Hogan appears, period. Live.
You might want to bottle this. Yeah. So we got off to a big start with the Jon Moxley, Karl Anderson, IWGP United States Championship match. And Moxley is the first one out, which I thought was a smart play here to start the broadcast with. As Moxley...
To me, it makes it an obvious choice to put these IWGP U.S. title matches up front at the top. Number one, I mean, it's another promotion's title, so I don't think it makes sense to put it in your main event. But number two, it's Jon Moxley holding it. He's got one of the best entrances in the arena or in the roster. He's got it's a great way to showcase the audience, and he's arguably your biggest star in the company to catch people on right at 8 o'clock. So a great choice for your first match.
He comes out to Wild Thing. Eddie Kingston's with him. The place is going electric, which was just a signal of things to come on this broadcast. Kingston attacks Gallows on the floor with a pipe and takes him out through the crowd. So they disappear for the rest of it. And they do note that it's New Japan rules. So we have a 60-minute time limit and a 20 count.
60-minute limit? That's a bit generous. You know? 60 minutes, you're going to
They were about to give New Japan an hour of their broadcast.
Is it because it's a title match? Like, does every New Japan title match have a 60-minute limit?
Yeah.
Even the fucking never 6-man tag? Even the KOPW championship is a 60-minute limit?
Well, the U.S. title for sure. So they were getting,
all right.
They were very liberal with the time they allotted, and they were also liberal with one of the counts when they were on the floor. I think I counted to 200.
Might have been a 60-minute count.
It might have been. They had an actual Fry Takayama spot here, unlike Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns on Saturday. They fought on the ramp where Moxley took a suplex. This is where they were on the floor for just forever. There was a superplex by Moxley.
Like they were on the floor for so long. I thought for sure they were going to do the New Japan 20 count tease. Where like the crowd chants along, like AEW doesn't have an announcer do the counting for them, but like, you know, the crowd was counting along because I think the crowd found it a novelty that this was a 20 count. And so I thought for sure they were going to do the last minute tease, which is like kind of your almost like a cliche New Japan thing, but it would have been fun. But I was almost disappointed when like he went back in at like 14-15.
So Moxley got a bloody nose in all of this. He fakes a takedown to apply a sleeper. The paradigm shift gets blocked, and Anderson takes a discus forearm, but then hits the gun stun and a TKO, getting a 2 count. He goes for a top rope gun stun. It's blocked, short arm clothesline, and since this is a New Japan match, Death Rider for the win in 9 minutes and 40 seconds with Jon Moxley retaining.
Pretty good opening match. Very high energy. They didn't overdo it with the kickouts, which I thought is perfect for an opening match. I thought Karl Anderson did really well. You know, this might have been like the most high-profile singles match he's had since leaving the WWE, and maybe even if you include the WWE, to be quite honest. I thought he did really well. You know, it's like there's a very high standard for singles wrestlers and for opening match singles wrestlers in AEW, and I thought he definitely lived up to it. It was a fun match.
Very enjoyable match. I mean, the crowd, like, you couldn't not be into this match. It was just such a red-hot crowd. It was Moxley's first match back since the pay-per-view. Just everything worked really well here, and they had a really nice match.
Did the shaved head work for you?
You know what? You can notice it, but I don't think it was, like, that jarring a difference from the regular look of Moxley.
Yeah, we're talking maybe an inch off, you know. But I think it works for him. You know, the man is a dad now. He can afford to look a little bit older. It's fine. Still a badass.
Yeah, it's called a dad bald.
Yes.
Lance Archer is in the back. He addresses Moxley, who took that title from him on January 4th of last year. Moxley's beaten Kenta, Suzuki, Nagata, but it's time for a rematch. We had a Texas death match. I want another one next week. One of us won't be standing by the end of it. So a pretty simple challenge laid out, and they happen to be in Texas next week. So geographically, this makes sense.
I love it. I think it's still, even though like this Forbidden Door, I mean, I hate to even use the term anymore, but it's been
Forbidden Door has become the new WWE universe to me. It just sounds like a very term that has been very commercialized, and it just feels like we should just acknowledge like the fact that it just feels like a marketing
to use something
tool
else
now.
Would you like us to replace it?
The clear working relationship, the very open working agreement where we're sending talent back and forth.
How about like the reversible window, or like the the two-way mirror, you know, the flap. Anyway, I think it's still really awesome. You know, like you have Lance Archer here, who the guy leaves one company to sign with another company, yet somehow in a roundabout way can still rely on the same story that he built with this guy over 2 years or a year and a half ago to tell the rematch for this same title. It's so weird and it's so awesome. You know, this New Japan AEW relationship feels like it's a truly kind of at least on the AEW show, it feels like it's actually not just now, you know, strictly New Japan signed wrestlers, but other wrestlers that can compete for the title with New Japan histories.
And Excalibur even snuck the history into the commentary during the match, noting that it's ironic we're here in Texas because it was a Texas death match in Japan where Moxley won this title. So already you've got that planted in your head, in the back of your mind, that it naturally segues into this promo and made the match. Like, and they're very good at giving you a reason for a match. Even tonight, they just throw out the stat that Christian Cage has never beaten Matt Hardy in a singles match.
So I think they are very good, but I think in particular, Excalibur is really good. I mean, I'm sure that maybe there are people actually helping them do some of this research, but I know a lot of this, at least for this New Japan match, is probably all Excalibur. You really can't ask for a better person to call a match like this.
They're like, okay, Chris Harrington, can you please open up your Excel sheet and tell us when these two people have ever had a match? We need a story for this match for next week. Give us some algorithm that leads us to a story behind this match.
Cage match is a great resource as well.
It is too. Yes. Alex Abrahantes is with Andrade, and he has been given permission to kick down the Forbidden Door and win titles anywhere. Andrade asks, "Where is the Death Triangle? I'm looking for them."
He is, yeah. Which puts Alex, of course, in a tough spot because he is Penta's.
That'll be a hell of a match for them to call.
Kenta versus Penta, sure. We'll throw Miro in there. You can have 2 game overs, yeah.
And then out comes Selena De La Renta.
Wow, book it, sure, why not? And they should form a trio against Cage, Page, and one of the Pages. Anyway, this was a subtitled backstage interview with Andrade. How do you think it, helped or didn't? What do you think?
It was fine. It was a backstage promo. It was one of many on this show, but I wouldn't say one of the memorable ones. I don't know. Andrade has just lacked a spark for me thus far in the AEW run. I mean, I'm not grading a whole lot into this. This was, a 60-second spot backstage, and at least gives us a direction of where he's going. And when you look at those options, like Andrade paired with Penta, or Phoenix once he's ready to come back, or Pac, I mean, sign me up. I mean, those are all great combinations. So, I mean, at least is pointing you in a direction that I would imagine people are interested in.
Reviews weren't really strong for his debut match last week, but we know what
special. Yeah,
we know what this guy is capable of. I don't really kind of put too much stock into that one single match. I know when you pair this guy enough up with the talent that is on this roster, he's going to create, magic eventually at some point. Did you find it notable that Vicky wasn't a part of this?
She was not there, but again, that's not the first time we've had an Andrade segment where she's absent. I mean, same with the sit down. So I don't read anything into that because, we've seen it's weird. He still had the assistant, but yeah, no Vicky.
I think they're on their way to breaking it up personally,
They could. I mean, that combination has, we've seen it enough times that I don't think it's really jumping out at people. And, does he necessarily need the mouthpiece as well?
He's got subtitles now. Don't really.
FTW Championship. Brian Cage against Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks lives in nearby Austin, Texas, which is pretty much like right adjacent to where they are. So he was incredibly popular to this crowd. Taz is on commentary, and this is Starks' first match back since his neck injury. So he hasn't wrestled since April. Starks snaps the arm of Cage as they imply that he is going after previously injured body parts of Cage. And we went through the picture-in-picture. Crowd is chanting, "Ricky's awesome." And we got some spectacular stuff here. There was a pump handle facebuster to Starks, and he gets his foot on the rope, and the crowd, they just go nuts. They just want to see Ricky Starks survive this monster. Starks eats a hard super kick for a 2 count, and then takes Cage out of the corner with a last ride. Starks then grabs the FTW belt, but Hobbs pulls it away, and Starks turns around into an F5 for a huge near fall. It's like this whole crowd, they're giving Starks, as soon as he gets hit with something, they're out. They're like, there's no way. So then they go mental when he finally kicks out. And then Hook distracts Bryce. And from there, Hobbs is the one who nails Cage with the belt shot, allowing Starks to hit a spear. And this crowd explodes at the count of 3 as Ricky Starks wins the title.
It's going to be kind of difficult for me to criticize anything on this show because the crowd was really elevating any match to just a next level, spectacle. I'm trying to just, maybe base my assessment on how good was this in ring. And I think this match was really good. And the crowd, being right there with it just kind of elevated that very good to perhaps even a great. It was a tremendous return to form for Ricky Starks. And I will say maybe, the swerve that they were working here with Hobbs pretending to, be on the side of a fair fight and then ultimately screwing Brian Cage. I wasn't really so shocking given how long they've been dragging this Brian Cage defection from FTW. But I'm happy to see the story move along. I want to see now a Brian Cage who's pissed off and out for revenge, taking down the rest of FTW, maybe with his own associates.
Yeah, I mean, this on paper probably wouldn't jump out, but this was one instance where the crowd just made Ricky Starks feel like a superstar on this show. It was an enormous reaction, and one that I don't think too many people would have been expecting Starks to win this. And the fact that he did, I think you just had such an electric crowd that elevated that moment significantly, that this didn't feel like this to me was by leaps and bounds like the most impressive moment involving the FTW title in this AEW reign. And not to say there was much competition for that, but that distinction goes to this Ricky Starks win.
Hard to disagree.
Excalibur reflects on Malachi Black last week, not the man I used to know.
They still call him Tommy End. So
yeah, it was like on this show, his name was Tommy End, Malachi Black.
I think his real life name is Tommy End, and he is just being possessed by Malachi Black. Like the Fiend, that type of thing.
All right. So we're to believe Tommy End is now his given name on his birth certificate?
Yeah, they're not calling him Tom Budgeon. Is that his real name?
Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah, no. Excalibur's old friend, the guy he recognized, is Tommy End. The guy who Cody recognized before is Tommy End. But this thing that just showed up is Malachi Black.
Okay.
That's the guy they don't want.
Gotcha. So Cody storms out to the broadcasters area and addresses Tommy End, Malachi. He understands wanting to be a franchise player, but we don't kick 62-year-old men in the head. That's where we draw the line. And he gets the microphone. He explains, I don't win every fight, but I want to fight you. And he tells Black to answer his challenge because he feels like fighting. And the lights go out. This place is going nuts. And there is Malachi Black - Tommy End in the dark room. And we've got smoke.
The dark room is back.
The dark room is back. Yes.
I mean, they're really just like transitioning. I mean, it's a slightly elevated version of Aleister Black, but it really is the same character. And you can't really put a trademark on a dark room, nor the last name Black. So he's able to retain a whole lot.
Okay, so Storytime Drew has not been Wai's favorite, but we got Storytime Black, who told us the tale. I once saw a man with a horse and killed the horse. And he explained that this was his prize stallion. But one day the man woke up and he looked at the horse and it just wasn't the same horse. It had become a cripple. And he let the horse go with dignity. He took the horse out. He fed the horse its favorite treats and then put a bag over its head. And here we are, Cody. I looked in your eyes and it just wasn't there anymore. So this guy is alluding to he is going to put a bullet in Cody's head, essentially. And this is when the lights go out, and then he appears in the ring, and this crowd is just, oh my God, it's the guy who was on the screen. It's Malachi Black and Tommy End in the ring, and then they had this awesome pull apart, this crowd red hot, which I have already said like 5 times, and we're only at like the 3rd segment on the show. But this turned into a really great segment. I recapped that story. That is a tribute to Aleister's delivery. I did not think it came off badly, but it was a story that very easily could have been a Drew McIntyre icky, tricky story.
I've done enough podcasts with you to realize like the effect of the John Pollock filter. Like you can make anything sound hilarious. Okay, and so sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is a real great, I think, assessment of the actual thing itself. But in this case, you're right. Okay, what you made sound kind of funny was in broadcast form. Actually, I thought really cool. I was a big fan of Storyteller Black. It was an effective story. It was a cool sounding story, and I mean it was a nice way to kind of direct the crowd's attention away from the ring before the appearance. A detail I really loved was, first of all, Cody coming out, storming into the broadcast and talking directly to the camera with a headset. I love that shit. Like, that felt like something his dad would do. It felt urgent. It felt attention grabbing. It was great. And then when these two started...
could you imagine Dusty cutting the promo on behalf of that horse to Malachi Black?
Oh, maybe.
Could you imagine him?
What would he say?
Conjuring that soul of that horse who had so much life left in him. Were you going to kill that horse? I say nay.
Oh, fuck.
Dude, it would have been amazing.
God damn. Wow, you're on tonight. Holy shit. That was great. But
now I want to see Dusty feud with Malachi Black.
Please sign me up.
Oh God.
Another detail I really loved was once these two started brawling, you recognize what Cody is wearing. Cody wore all white today for a reason, because he knew he was going up against the guy who was going to dress in all black. So these two, their brawl looked like a spinning yin-yang symbol. It was great. Just awesome.
When do you want to see this match? What do you think is the optimal... Like, this was a big angle tonight, as was last week. What do you think is the time frame on this?
Well, I think, what is it? What are we talking about? Labor Day? I mean... Oh, man.
I think that's too long at this point of what they've already done. I mean, we had the big pull apart today. I mean, I don't know if you could hold it off that long. Like, this is big enough. You could certainly do it at the pay-per-view. I would want to make Black's first match a big deal, but I can't imagine them going many more weeks until you've kind of got to do the match now.
I mean, the next real big tentpole show feels like it would be the debut of Rampage, which is exactly a month away. on the 13th. So that might be a good one to, have them touch for the first time in ring, in the body of a match itself. But I definitely see this feud lasting until All Out.
Yeah, you could promote it as Black Friday.
Oh my goodness. I'm just going to exit this room. Wow.
They should be listening to this podcast with a pen and paper. I'm just giving out free ideas tonight. So, great segment here. I thought it worked really well. We go to the back. Tully Blanchard is accompanied with his red sequined jacket, and he runs into Santana and Ortiz, and Tully, tosses his luggage at Ortiz, and then they're about to nail him with a crowbar, and I guess they explain it's not real, but next time it will. This totally looked like a legit crowbar, and then Tully explained that he's going to get his boys. So we are... another match that we are holding off for some time to eventually do this FTR Santana and Ortiz match that they're, I think, really trying to milk this one to extend it until they pull the trigger. So
we learned today that it's in AEW, we don't kick 62-year-old men.
But we threaten them with crowbars. That's fine. That's intimidation.
Okay, right. Yeah. As long as the crowbar's fake, I guess.
That is great that we went from that segment to this one.
No, it was cool. It's like they're baby faces that are intimidating the, asshole manager of the tag team who, has always attacked them from behind. So, sure, why not?
The next segment sees Tony Schiavone bring out Hangman Page, and he is just so popular here. He says that since day one, he wanted to be AEW champion. He came so close, but he failed. And I tried to run from it. But the Dark Order is right. I still need that championship. And I am here to officially challenge. And Don Callis cuts him off and comes out with the Elite. Super heat for this group coming out. And they are all equally dressed to be shittier than the one next to them.
You think these outfits will sell as much as the Bullet Club shirts?
I don't know. These young bucks, short overalls that they were wearing, there are nuts that would totally buy these. Yes. They say they all take turns saying that Paige is just not that guy. And Matt takes the microphone, goes into the ring saying that Paige abandoned us for a bunch of losers. And your breath indicates that you're still hitting the bottle. You're a sad and lonely drunk. And you are going to be the next great wrestling tragedy. And Paige nails Matt. And he has his back turned. Omega is winding up behind him with the belt. When the Dark Order chases off Omega and all of the Elite, Paige gets on the mic. He wants Omega tonight. Omega says, "What do you think this is? Some hot shot overnight booking sensation? No. He suggests a 5-on-5 elimination match. Paige agrees, but if they win this elimination match, he gets Omega for the title, and the Dark Order will get tag titles, the tag title shot against the Young Bucks. Huge cowboy shit chant, and Omega says, well, in exchange, if we win, none of you get title shots. And he ends by telling Paige that yes, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but you also don't fail. And isn't that what you're afraid of, Paige? And then says instead of cowboy shit, they're going to start chanting, Belt Collector, Belt Collector. I thought that was hilarious. There wasn't a person in this arena that tried to chant this. And Paige says they don't back down and we're on. So I don't know when this match is happening. They did not state when this would happen, but we are going to do a 5-on-5 elimination match. This was, I thought that what they have right now with Hangman Page is very reminiscent to me of a decade ago of what the WWE was sitting on with CM Punk. That's how hot I think Hangman Page feels at this moment.
Interesting. Wow. I love the segment. Page's energy when he came out here was, even without the crowd, just judging about his demeanor, I thought he was so strong. He came in here with so much intensity when he even first attempted to deliver that challenge. He has confidence, he has fire, and it's those two things that this crowd has been waiting for from this character for so long. they did a great job of, I think, condensing and recapping Paige's story up until now in those few lines. And Kenny, I thought in his promo, really hit on the core point of the character. He is a man, Hangman Page is, who has been struggling with his inner confidence ever since he lost that belt or that title match against Chris Jericho at the first All Out. I really also enjoyed the back and forth negotiation to get to the match and the stipulations involved. So often it's just like, I challenge you to a match, or Teddy Long comes out. Like, you're going to have a 5-on-5 match tonight. And if you lose, you get a title shot. And if you win, you lose. Like, for no reason whatsoever, or at least like very kind of sloppily put together reasons. Here we actually had the participants of the match logically build and negotiate back and forth to get to the end result with these stipulations. So both sides now have something to gain and they have something to lose. And arguably, when you look at the what's being offered here, Page arguably has the most to lose. He is going to possibly lose his world championship title match if one of his friends would take a pinfall. But because the man is such a good, loyal guy, because he is now working on his own confidence and the ability to overcome it, he is willing to take that risk because, you know why? Because he's now not afraid to fail. That to me is a great showcase of a hero persevering through his biggest fear. So this segment was fantastic. Page is really like, you compare and contrast this Page from where he was 2 years ago, and in 2 years, AEW strictly through their TV. I mean, this man's performance as well. But they've turned this guy from merely a challenger that nobody really kind of like took too seriously against Chris Jericho to definitely the company's next top babyface who's on deck. So it really is remarkable. And I hope they can really maintain this momentum or even grow it all the way until September.
There's so much you can do with what they've laid out here. Like just the added stipulation that Page inserted to try and help his friends get a tag title match out of this. So he's not just fighting for his own championship shot. Mm-hmm. He's fighting for his friends. Like that's a cool dynamic. How they do this match and structure it of how much or how little you have with Omega and Page. Like you don't want to give too much of that away. There's so much interesting stuff to all of this. And how you ultimately eliminate one of them in the match. Like, this is not some 5-on-5 where it's just, okay, we're going to have the weakest link take the fall. Like, you're doing an elimination match, which requires, like, there's two ways of thinking. Like, the obvious one is that, Page just, wins this, sets up the match. And that's very likely what they could do, unless they want to further detour Page, and he's got to work another way around to get to this title match. But maybe that's overthinking things, that this can just be... Because if they were going to do this match next week, that I thought is what they were leading to, I mean, it's so early that you could still do some kind of, he comes close and something messes up. And it's like that scene in the movie where he's starting to improve and then boom, something catastrophic occurs. But we don't know when this match is happening either.
I'm predicting there'll probably be the week after Fyter Fest. Just maybe trying to think. Like, it would be a little awkward to, like, even next week say, in 2 weeks, we're going to get this. I think that's almost like announcing it way too early. I think 2 weeks is about the maximum that you can really kind of delay an announcement before it gets really cold.
It also probably has to be a very long match.
Give me at least half hour of this.
I think it has to go at least. I could see it going 30 to 40. Like the fact they're doing elimination, and I don't think they're going to do just your Survivor Series, and we do 9 eliminations in 20 minutes.
Oh man, you have like war games level stakes attached to something like this. I definitely, and this feud is hot enough to warrant, like 30-40 minute match on TV. So absolutely give me that. I feel like they, when the match occurs, I mean, it's got to be Page and the Dark Order winning, because number one, the alternative means you don't get those two matches. So you kind of lose out on that. And secondly, I feel like it's a pretty foregone conclusion to everybody that we're going to see Page and Omega. So why delay the inevitable,
Yeah, it's just like once you do this match, it's like the match is locked, and we are. We're getting close. Like it's not like All Out is that long away, but we are talking 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, don't forget, Rampage will be around too, so that's extra TV time that see a bit more presence from them as well. But at this point, it's just like it's already boiling. Like it's already like. so hot. So can they keep it up, or can they even build it?
Mm-hmm. And you've sold out the venue as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Marvez is in the back with Chris Jericho to go over the 5 labors of Jericho. And that MJF is a learned and intelligent man who uses Greek mythology to get what he wants. I don't think in my lifetime I have ever heard the term, that guy uses Greek mythology to really get what he wants. He really knows how to manipulate that Greek mythology.
Yeah. If the Greeks have done it, it just kind of bolsters your case. You can convince anything using Greek mythology.
But MJF should know that after Hercules bested the Cerabes and Hydra, did I butcher that?
You're asking the wrong dude, man.
Cerberus, that he won and Hercules got what he wanted. And that's exactly what's going to happen with Jericho, who doesn't care if MJF throws Superman, Black Panther, or resurrects Muhammad Ali, because Jericho will knock Muhammad Ali out. Jericho will walk through fire and run across broken glass, which might be what the stipulation builds up to ruin MJF's life, just like MJF tried to ruin his, because I am the god of thunder and the god of war, but not the god of peripheral vision, because boom, Shawn Spears enters the room and nails this dude in the throat with a chair. Always lock the door when you're cutting a promo. Always.
The god of peripheral vision, was that like Norse mythology or Roman? Like, what was that?
That's in the that's the select editions that only a few
Testament.
Yeah, only a few curriculums really went into the god of peripheral vision. So Chris Jericho has just lost his trachea, and MJF sits down on the couch and announces that the first labor is against Shawn Spears next week, where the stipulation is that Shawn Spears can use a chair, but Jericho cannot. And then they just drill him in the left arm with the chair, as Jericho is left for dead here.
Yeah, just a good little teaser for next week. It gives you a sense of some of the types of stipulations and odds that Jericho is going to face. I'm interested to see like what creative ways they can have Jericho find himself like out of these tough scenarios. I hope the match delivers.
How much merchandise do they get out of this Greek mythology motif that they are heavily investing in?
I don't know. I don't know what they could possibly do. I don't really think of Greek mythology when I think of.
I feel like Jericho's going to have like some pendant that he gets for every victory, and it's going to be like Jericho's just all in on this whole thing, and this is going to be like his Infinity Stones he needs to collect to cash in against MJF.
Well, he does have the Alpha Club already.
Yeah,
so he could go through all the letters.
Up next was Matt Hardy against Christian Cage, where once again, Christian has never beaten Matt Hardy in a singles match, which sounds crazy until you realize that they have not had many singles matches. I could find 2 singles matches that these two have had in their lives.
Wow.
And they occurred in August of 2001 and December of 2003. With a 3-way with Eddie Guerrero at Backlash in 2001. However, Matt Hardy won all 3 of those.
So how much did their paths actually cross after Christian went to TNA?
After TNA? Nothing.
Yeah, they haven't.
All of their matches are pretty much condensed to that 99 through, I would say, 2003, 2004 period. Like, they were not even... I think they were on Raw for a time together. Like, it's not like they were on separate brands after the brand split the whole time. But, I mean, all the matches that they had, a huge amount of it is concentrated when they were all in tag matches.
So I guess this is a bit of a fresh feud. It's really, I mean, we align their names so much. I mean, because of the tag team feud, but it just feels like both have had pretty consistent presences over the past 20 years.
They never overlapped in TNA because Christian was gone by the time Matt Hardy got there the one time in 2011 and then came back years later. Like Christian's in WWE that whole time on his second stint. And then back in WWE, Christian was gone by, what was his last match? 2014, 2015, and Matt Hardy's in TNA still at that time. So when Matt comes back with Jeff, Christian's already he's not wrestling at that point. So kind of that whole second half, like post 2005, there really is no time that they both are on the same active roster together until now.
Cool.
So we see Christian Cage hit this huge high cross to the floor, and then Hardy grabs Christian and hits a draping DDT on the steps and proceeds to catapult Cage's throat into the bottom rope. They go through the commercial break. Hardy is staggering up after a twist of fate is countered, and Hardy avoids a spear. Christian tries again, hits the frog splash, and then we pass the 10-minute mark, and JR just says how much he loves that we have time limits in AEW, which it sounds like an odd thing to say in the middle of a match. Like, I can say that you like the idea that these structures are in place, but if you are just watching this match, why would you be excited about it? They might run out of time. They might not. We might not get a conclusive end. Like, why would you root for that?
I'm trying to think, like, in a real sport, like if there's one league that happened to not have time limits and another one that did have time limits.
Baseball does not have a time limit.
Baseball does not have a time limit. Okay, let's say the National League all of a sudden decided, okay, every inning has a 15-minute time limit. Right?
Joe Carter up facing Mitch Williams. Sorry, we're out of time. Phillies win. We gotta go.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, would an announcer calling a National League
in the
game
context of the wrestling show, it just doesn't add up that you would be rooting for a time limit. As an analyst, I totally get, like, time limits can add a lot of drama to the match.
Okay.
And it adds like a system in place.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, if it was, let's think the baseball example. If there was a clock attached to it, I mean, players would be taking their at-bats a lot more seriously. You know, the action would be much more fast-paced. The strategy would be totally different than I think what baseball would be. So for that reason, he could be thankful. And maybe JR in this context is saying, oh, with the time limit, we're going to see a much more faster action because these guys are going to take their time with these, long chin locks when in matches with no time limit. Saved it for you, JR.
Well, Matt hit a superplex. Kill switch gets stopped with a low blow by Matt, and he hits the twist of fate. Cage kicks out for a big pop. And then on the floor, Matt applies the leech.
The leech. It sounds a bit more devastating than the butterfly lock.
What was this in the in TNA? What did he call this? The ice pick or something like that? It was
something like that.
So he has this submission on. He lets go of it, and he's going to take the count-out win, but Christian makes it in at the count of 9, and boom, hits the kill switch and pins Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that logic, I know it's sports. Like, a knockout blow can occur at any moment in a real sport, so a finisher could be delivered at any moment. But yeah, the flow here didn't really make as much sense to me, with like Matt Hardy as the one who's been recovering this entire time. In ring, he's fresh. And all of a sudden, this guy barely makes it back in, half dead from the leech, and just hits his finisher. How does that work? In a video game, this wouldn't be possible.
Because Christian's recuperative abilities was aware, hey, body, time is ticking. We've got a time limit here.
It's the time limit. There you go.
That Wolverine recovery strength here to come back from a devastating leech submission, and then boom, he wins. It was just, it was very jarring to do the dramatic count-out save, and then the guy nails his finisher and wins it.
Yeah. Well, crowd reacted really well for it, so it's hard for me to criticize because everything.
Listen, I thought they had a fine professional wrestling match. I didn't have any real complaints about it. It was a little jarring with the finish, but I thought both worked really well together for all. I think there's been some criticism of this program for how long it's gone, but I had no issue with the match. It was, the audience, in particular Christian, this was among the best reactions Christian's gotten in AEW.
Totally agree. I actually thought it was a very good match. You know, admittedly, man, for whatever reason, it just wasn't one I had too much interest in. But I thought the result was a really strong showcase between these veterans. Like all of Christian's AEW appearances, I think what stands out about his performances is his intelligence in pacing, his ability to really kind of maximize crowd reactions out of everything he's able to do. And like, I couldn't really hear what Matt Hardy was doing during commercial, of course, but man, when they came back, this crowd was even harder than they were before. So whatever he was doing to like rile this crowd up was evidently very effective. So it was a good match and a worthy addition to the show.
And a congratulations to Matt Hardy and his wife Rebby. They just had their 4th child.
4 kids. You can do 2 tag teams now.
Man,
he's created.
Right? He's got a
stable.
He's got future members. He's got the legit Hardy family office.
Yes, there you go.
Out came Private Party, Angelico, and they circle the ring around Christian, but Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy run out to clear the ring, and Luchasaurus lifts up Cage on his shoulders. So, potential 6-man, I guess, coming out of this.
They need some sort of a dinosaur gimmick for Christian, I think.
Well, his, what was it, his uncle? One of his ancestors is a dinosaur.
Yeah, right.
Then we had the Miro video. There was once a man who was rich, who had a hot wife that could do the splits. The man was hot too, but he was lost. He was lost because he wasn't being himself. He walked out of his house to look into the void to search for what's next. And then the voice came and said that the man should forgive himself and remember who he was. When you have a title, you have a problem. He was not a selfish man, and he forgave every man he destroyed, and thus he is God's favorite champion, and this is my award. I am the Redeemer.
Cool promo. Cool video.
This was like a children's book.
Yeah. They recolored the belt. Do you notice?
I didn't notice that.
The TNT title is now on a white strap with green instead of red.
Oh, okay.
I thought it looked awesome. And I hope they kind of keep this gimmick up. If you win the TNT title, you get to pick your own colors. Maybe they should make it like, okay,
and then you can put out a replica for every new champion.
Well, that too. But
this is the game in pro wrestling, folks. New title belts on a consistent basis.
Of course, yeah. Like maybe it should be something that you earn. Like, okay, if you defend the belt 5 times, you could change the strap color. If you defend it 10 times, you can add a little bit of color into the actual metal itself.
Shivani brought out Britt Baker. She has no fear of Nyla, despite the table break a few weeks ago. I'm still the baddest bitch on the block. Nyla has beaten her in the past, and she's high up the food chain, but I'm off the menu. I'm a special order.
I love that line. Awesome. And then she went on to talk about the Chiking sandwich. If she did, I wouldn't have been mad, honestly, because like this promo was so good. Her delivery was so good.
She goes on. She knows Vicky's watching. You have a last name that will forever keep you relevant in pro wrestling. But Nyla, not so much. She needs this title to be significant in AEW. I'm the hottest thing in pro wrestling, even without this title. Because even without it, I'm still Dr. Britt Baker. And dude, she doesn't even have to continue. The whole crowd chants DMD. And we got a brief rebuttal from Vicky and Nyla in the back, where Vicky said her days as champion are numbered. And Nyla says that Baker's been handed everything. Next week she'll be handed an ass whooping. And it's just the nature of the beast.
Really, really good segments from both of them. But I mean, Baker in particular, I just thought, man, her presence and confidence right now are next level. In a short amount of time, she was able to deliver like very memorable lines. She probably couldn't have used. She was only given 2 minutes here, like maybe a minute and a half, and I don't think she could have used them better. So it might have been my favorite promo on the show.
I really enjoyed the balance on this show between the wrestling and the promos, and it never got to me. Like, there's some weeks where I just feel it's my head spinning from all of the different segments, and I'm sure there were a lot if you tally them up, but I found by the end of the show, I could remember all of the key stuff if I did not have to rely on notes. And I thought there were some exceptional promos on this show.
Yeah, agreed.
Including Jon Moxley, who says, you don't beat Lance Archer, you survive him. And Archer has never been stopped, and therefore he's going to keep coming after me until he ends my career. I'm the hunter, and I'm the only boogeyman in AEW or New Japan. He says Texas Death 2 is on. And Lance, you might be Texas born and Texas bred. Next week, you'll be Texas dead. Maybe I'm a bit of a masochist way, but I loved the promos that revolved around, I'm going to kill you. There were several of them tonight.
Well, as long as you know they're not being literal about it, then
no,
yes.
This is adding an edge to this violence that is going to occur.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like the threat of violence. I like the threat of even extreme violence. But
no, we don't want anyone to perish.
No, but yeah, just the threat.
Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta. Dude, Sammy Guevara came out and just felt like the biggest star on this show. My God, this crowd went insane for him. And this guy just exuded so much charisma. He took his time with everything. He made this crowd just eat up everything he was going to do. He only did a fraction of like his usual output, but he got like 10 times the reaction for everything he did. They showed some highlights of Yuta on recent episodes of Dark, and he came out with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor, while they also showed the Blade and the Bunny in the crowd. Guevara went for the moonsault off the top, landed on his feet, went for another landing on his feet, and then hit a standing shooting star press. And then came off the top with a shooting star press, landing on the knees of Yuta. And Yuta comes back, German suplex, hit a big splash off the top, only gets a 1 count, and Guevara makes his comeback with a double springboard cutter and the GTH. Sammy wins in 3 minutes and 48 seconds.
I thought this was just, man, Sammy getting to come out, getting to show his most incredible stuff. And maybe, like you said, just a fraction of it. He's been a fantastic heel, but now as a babyface, I feel like the shackles are off. He could just go out there and do as much pretty looking, high flying, incredible athleticism as he can. I thought the match really managed to, like, again, continue to carry off that momentum coming off the MJF match, coming off the Stadium Stampede even for a guy like Sammy. So, you know, it's like he's up there right now. Like, I mean, it really is incredible because right now, brewing in this kind of like second tier of guys just bubbling underneath the main event surface. Again, we mentioned like Sammy, MJF. I think is already kind of there. Paige and
Darby.
Jungle Boy. Yeah, Darby, absolutely. Jungle Boy, you know. I would say Britt Baker if you want to maybe kind of throw her in the mix. But it's almost a sort of separate division. And maybe I think it's the women's division that kind of needs, you know, those names that are kind of bubbling just as hot. But yeah, like they're doing a great job with Sammy right now.
Yeah. And to me, it's been such a natural transition from the cocky, annoying Sammy Guevara into like this version. Like he comes out, he's still got the demeanor.
He's still cocky.
Yeah.
Except we like him now.
Exactly.
So we want him
now
to be
he's
cocky.
our cocky asshole. That's how the crowd feels about him. And it's just been a seamless transition without him going like Randy Orton in 2004, where all of a sudden he's all smiles after being this prick for years.
Totally. Absolutely. You know, like I would say everybody in the inner circle throughout their transition to becoming babyfaces has retained that edge.
Shivani, this was one that just did not land for me. He's with QT Marshall, Aaron Solo, and Nick Comoroto. We don't even get a point to this promo other than QT's annoyed with Tony, so they pour like their drink all over his head.
Yeah, I know. Poor Tony. I have to probably shower and, man, rough. And a waste of a shake, you know. I don't know exactly what it is now with this factory. You know, I think the members themselves all have a great deal of potential, but I'm not feeling it with QT. You know, especially the way he lost that feud with Cody. It just feels like such a low level stable now.
Like in theory, someone should stand up for Tony in the coming weeks, but I don't know. Just on its own here, this just was throwaway.
Who? Britt Baker?
Britt Baker taking on QT?
Yeah,
You could do that.
I mean, the Brit is Tony's best friend.
Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki. This was Sakazaki's first AEW match since February, and Penelope Ford is 8-1 this year and has won 16 of her last 17.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. Sakazaki hit a cannonball off the middle rope, and we went through the commercial, and twice Ford gets Yuka into the Muda lock, but Sakazaki gets to the rope. There was a big suplex by Sakazaki, some pump kicks from Ford, and then this hammerlock airplane spin with Ford landing face first on the mat and then finished with the Magical Girl splash. But Sakazaki got a pretty good reaction coming out here from this crowd that just seemed to be into everyone to varying degrees on this show. But I thought, like, with Sakazaki, the question would be, would the crowd react to her, who has not been a regular on AEW for some time, but they seem to be very much into her.
Very much so, you know, and it tells you she's made a big enough impression throughout her time in AEW, that even the layaway that she's had, it only maybe might have even just made her a bigger star. Crowd really embraced her and gave her a fantastic reaction. So, of like the Joshi wrestlers that have come in, I would say she definitely made a big impression.
Next week, Fyter Fest Night 2 in Garland, Texas, which is about 200 miles away from where they were on Wednesday, has Britt Baker and Nyla Rose for the women's title, Jon Moxley versus Lance Archer in a Texas death match for the U.S. title, Chris Jericho against Shawn Spears, where chairs are legal for Spears, and Orange Cassidy versus The Blade. So obviously there will be stuff announced over the next week, but you've got those top two matches of Moxley, Archer, and Baker, Rose. Do you think they put Baker and Rose in the main event slot?
Yeah, I don't think you put the Moxley match in the main event. You know, I mean, actually, you know, given the stipulation, given the fact that it's Texas, maybe you can actually next week. You know, maybe they will do the New Japan title in the main event. But I would actually go Baker and Nyla.
Yeah, it's the Texas death match. It's like, it's very tough to either start the show with that or having people follow it. So I could see them putting that on last, but those are the two choices. And I could certainly see the argument of Baker and Nyla Rose as, again, much like tonight, like the main event slot comes with equity in AEW, and putting them in that main event slot, it just informs your audience. These are main eventers. And in particular, Baker, like establishing her and that title as a title that closes the show.
Having her end the show next week being triumphant, like her first full-on babyface victory, I think will be a great way to end next week's show.
They aired a trailer for AEW Rampage with half the roster getting electrocuted.
Yeah, so instead of like plumes of rainbow-colored smoke like we have for Dynamite, we have lightning bolts for Rampage.
And the tagline, less distraction, more action.
Oh, okay. As in like less distraction finishes?
We'll see. We will see. Maybe there's going to be plexiglass put up against the entrances when a match begins and no one can run out.
Okay. Less distraction, more action. What else can that mean? Like, they're going to take your phones away? You won't be distracted?
It's like going to a movie premiere where you've got a screening and you got to put it into the bag at the front.
The mindful wrestling show. You're going to make everybody meditate before?
Yeah. Everyone's got to take notes in the crowd. So they all got to pay attention. Main event, the Coffin Match between Ethan Page and Darby Allin. Darby immediately goes after him, driving his back into Page, and reveals he's wearing a metal plate on his back. Didn't have the exact reaction to the reveal as Bret Hart did.
No, it didn't. I don't know. It didn't really work for me either, because it was like Darby coming out and attacking somebody with a weapon. And that to me didn't feel all that heroic and all that babyface like. You know, like
he also took it off immediately. Why would you take it off? If it's your choice, your weapon that you snuck in, it's not against the rules. Why would you get rid of it?
Oh, it's heavy, maybe.
I'm telling you, I would have put it back on for the final minute of this show.
That is true. A number of dives left.
So Darby goes to open the coffin, and there's Scorpio Sky, who jumps out of the coffin, attacking Darby. And dude, Sting comes out. I cannot imagine what this pop was like live. It sounded unbelievable on TV. I can't imagine what it was live. Sting takes Scorpio Sky into the crowd and puts him up against the boards and goes for a stinger splash. I don't know if he hit him or not because the camera cut away right before the impact.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was a lot going on here because, like, at the same time, it was Paige ripping the, like, unbuckling one of the bottom turnbuckles. So that was important to get, but, you know, unfortunately, at the same time, Sting was doing the thing with the splash.
Sky then got onto the boards and got crotched, and this looked so unpleasant for Scorpio Sky. Allin and Paige then brawl over the guardrail, and they go into the crowd. We go to picture-in-picture, and in this first ever coffin match, we also got another first, and that was a balcony dive during the commercial break.
Well, yeah, commercial break balcony dive. Yes. Was this a first? Wow.
Well, during a picture-in-picture. I will say this, to their credit, they did replay it when they came back from break, but this would certainly be up there about the spots you want to make sure you're back from break before you are ascending off a balcony. But Paige caught him in midair as he was coming down and drilled him into the railing before they made their way back to the ring. And the top rope has been taken down, so Paige has the hook. He puts the hook around Darby's chain, around his neck, and then rips this thing off.
Yeah. I loved it. It was great.
Oh my God. Of all the things on this show, I don't care if they like gimmick this chain so that it would easily come off. I would be like, no, there's just the chance of this really, really being crappy for me.
Would you rather have that or have the thing in your mouth?
Oh, God, that's a tough one because after this, Darby takes control of the hook and, dude, uses the hook to fish hook Ethan in the mouth. That was pretty gross, too.
I'd be worried for the dude's teeth.
Yeah, there's probably
like
that, too.
One bad move. You're talking about, like, basically a giant baseball bat inside your mouth, you know?
There was a lot of unsanitary elements to this. He drop kicked the steps, sending Ethan into the coffin. But then Paige gets out. He's also cut on the forehead here. And in the ring, Allin flips over with a stunner, goes for a coffin drop, but is stopped by Ethan, who then launches Darby with the ego's edge off the turnbuckle, dropping him onto the steps, back first. That looked fun. They go onto the apron. Darby gouges Ethan's eyes and then gets out the skateboard, leaps off the top, nailing the skateboard into Paige, who flies into the coffin, and it is shut as Darby Allin is your winner.
They were doing a whole lot with, like, very little time left in the broadcast, you know? Like, 5 minutes in, they had just done I think it was the Ego's Edge spot or something like that. So, this was a lot packed into this main event, and I thought it was really great. Very entertaining. I think it delivered at the level of spectacle and violence that you were expecting from a stipulation match like this. You know, something tells me that there's more left in this feud for these two, and that they might hit another level in another match that these guys will have. So I definitely think there's more to the program.
I thought this was a really strong main event. Again, Darby is just such a popular figure whenever he's put into these roles. This was a great elevation of Ethan Page, who, it's amazing. This guy's come so far from the Transact Club, where I first saw him.
Oh, yes.
But I will say this. I was slightly concerned about this match, that they were just going to go to such an extreme that it's a given with Darby, and Ethan is in such a huge spotlight. Like, literally, this is probably the biggest match he has ever been a part of. And how violent this thing would be, that I was glad we didn't get the insane violence that we have seen in some Darby matches. Like, this was a perfectly acceptable amount that they did. Like, don't get me wrong, they did dangerous stuff in this, but it didn't, to me, get out of control that I thought this match kind of lent itself towards.
By their standards, yeah. Like, probably not the craziest match that these two have had, but
Yeah, like, I did not want to see like a power bomb to Darby in a body bag to the floor.
No, you'll get that in the rematch.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. But then as I say all that, the show ends with Ethan Page inside the wooden coffin, and Darby climbs to the top turnbuckle and launches himself with a coffin drop through the coffin.
That was insane. Like,
that was absolutely insane. That really negated everything I just said over the last 2 minutes.
The craziest spot in the match took place after the match.
It also, like, you could see Ethan was certainly positioned, like, at the far side of the coffin, but still, like, there's no preparing for that in any kind of safe manner. You are literally just hoping for the best for both of them.
It really was a spectacular way of ending this show. So that's probably one that'll make the highlight in the opening video. Man, what beautiful, like, imagery, somebody coffin dropping into a coffin.
Between that spot and the Guevara dive into the crowd with the camera right in front, I mean, they have some incredible promo material for AEW programming.
Just need some lightning bolts.
Just recently. Some lightning bolts, yes. I'm curious what AEW, how they treat the loser of a coffin match, because in Lucha Underground, that was the writing off of a character. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen here, but does Ethan Page disappear? Does he come back with a
zombie,
like some demonic version of Ethan Page? Or
he comes back as the Kung Fu guy?
I don't think we're going to get Karate Man coming to AEW. But that was AEW. What a spectacular show. 10 plus for this crowd. I can just go up and down, like Jon Moxley, Ricky Starks, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, Sting, Hangman Page. I mean, these people got unbelievable reactions. All of them. Like, they all felt like these giant stars on this show. Like, dude, Christian, Yuka Sakazaki, like, this crowd.
Did you say Malachi Black?
Malachi Black, Tommy End, Tom Budgeon. Yeah.
Everybody, dude. Everybody who came across as a star. Britt Baker.
Like, you just watched this 2 hours, and my God, if you were a new viewer, you would be leaving thinking, this is the hottest company in the world. That's what you would feel like. It was an unbelievable endorsement of this product by this crowd in Cedar Park, Texas tonight.
I mean, in terms of, at least in-ring product, yeah, absolutely they are.
Like, it was
is that a lie?
I mean, it was just, to me, it was having that atmosphere. It adds so much. It's like you're running to buy a ticket in your market to be part of these crowds. Like, it just feels like a party at these shows that are conveyed.
Totally. Absolutely.
Worth noting as well that the internet pre-sale for the Arthur Ashe Stadium show took place today, and WrestleTix, which it's a fantastic Twitter account that monitors all of this stuff. For the pre-sale, over 8,400 tickets have been distributed. So that's like tickets sold, your comps, whatever. At least 8,400 have moved already. And that's before the on sale to the public on Friday. So I think that show is going to do really well. Like, I think they're scaling it for just over 16,000 and can go up to over 19. Like, that's going to be a very successful show, I think, come Friday.
That's great news. And I mean, after a show like this, it's great advertising.
So a tremendous edition of Dynamite tonight, I would say.
Agreed.
All right, let us go to forum.postwrestling.com and get feedback from everybody and what they thought of tonight's edition of the show, week 1 of Fyter Fest. On a scale of 1 to 10, an 8.27 is where the forum came in. We start off with Mark. The energy the AEW crowds brings is incredible. This show feels like the hottest weekly wrestling program in decades. Tonight reinforced the fact that everybody who felt hot during the Daily's Place shows were genuinely over with the crowd at home. I've said it before, the closest comparison I feel like for AEW right now is WWF in 97. You've got a roster full of hungry future main eventers, a top-tier main event mix, and a promotion that is running on all cylinders to keep the audience watching. That's why I'm excited to be watching each week. I really feel like there's something special about this product that will be looked back upon in years to come.
Go to Matthew, who says, I think what happened was Adam Cole came home last night and was really proud of the great promo he cut on NXT.
Which was a very good promo on Tuesday, I will add.
But then Britt said, just wait and watch Dynamite tomorrow and I'll show you a promo. Coffin Match was nuts. I hope they let Omega and Paige feud go longer before the singles match. I'm sure, Adam Cole and Britt Baker are very supportive. They're probably each other's biggest fans.
Noah from Vaughn writes, last week's show I gave 10 out of 10, and yet this show was even better. This broke his scale. Broke Noah's scale.
Wow.
This has to be an 11 out of 10 then.
11 out of 10. Wow.
Every match was awesome, and I'd go as far as saying that this was one of AEW's best episodes of Dynamite, but holy cow, the crowd was really something special. I hope they return to Austin as a regular stop for them, because man, they were on fire. I think that's a guarantee. They did tremendous in this market. Hot crowd. I am sure they will be back in the Austin market. Everyone came across like huge stars, especially Hangman, Sammy, Darby, and Moxley. Incredible atmosphere all night long.
We go to Billy, who says, great crowd, elevated an 8 out of 10 show into 9.5 to 10 territory. Top to bottom, one of the best Dynamites and best main events since the parking lot street fight. All the storylines are just starting to pick up and materialize without treading water. Also love to see a wrestling company give the fans what they actually want by opening the show with Mox and closing it with Darby. I have tickets for All Out Weekend and haven't felt this excited for a wrestling show since All In.
Okay, we go next to Dan. Another fun episode. It's a speedy, flashy 2 hours of television minus the odd drag here and there. I absolutely love King Douche villain Kenny Omega. He brings an energy reminiscent of Bill Paxton's asshole car salesman character in True Lies. I can't get enough of it. In a world where so many wrestling heels want to come across like a Batman villain from the Nolan trilogy or Todd Phillips' Joker, Omega's happy to be a Batman villain from the 60s TV show. Consider me entertained. Now that we're 3 years in with the Fyter Fest brand, I want to know if you, John and Wai, think the event needs a rebrand in 2022, or should AEW keep the name forever?
I don't know how urgent they are to rebrand what is essentially now a special TV episode. You know, if it was I would actually maybe say that wouldn't hurt for like a Revolution or like, you know, what's the other one? Full Gear. Like, I never liked those names for pay-per-views. One I think is incredibly generic. The other is like a one-off joke from like Pac not like being in his underwear. I don't love those names, but whatever. They're established now. I would say maybe change up the look, but Fyter Fest, like really, I think at this point, Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen, these are just shows that I think are, you know, have a level of establishment of branding attached to them that will just help you be able to promote a bigger edition of Dynamite. So I don't think they're in an urgent, you know, like they're probably thankful that they have something like that. You know, in the future, you could probably turn this into one of the TNT specials. So I don't think they'll change the name anytime soon. But if you mean like a change of set and logo, I think that'll always help.
Yeah, I don't give too much thought to the names. I mean, outside of like Great Balls of Fire, I don't really think a name is going to be any kind of detriment. I think that's not what people are buying shows or tuning into shows for. But there is, over time, I think there is an argument to a consistency with names that you establish something, and as opposed to just renaming things left and right. I think if they've gone with Fyter Fest this long, that they're going to maintain that name. But I don't put too much thought into the names.
We kind of forget, but like they named it Fyter Fest as a shoot off of Fyter Fest? What was that documentary?
Yeah, the
Fyre Fest.
Fyre Fest, yeah.
Fyre Fest, yeah. So I mean, by the time like we get to Fyter Fest 5, I mean, I've already forgotten that documentary. So,
but it's like the name now has like it's its own outlet to the wrestling fan. They're not even thinking of Fyre Fest when they hear that name. It's another AEW event. So I don't think it's like a tongue in cheek thing.
It's kind of silly. Even. I mean, it's just kind of silly because, you know, like it's like calling something. I don't know what was a big event from like 10 years ago. How
about last year calling something referring to the Tiger King?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fighter King. You know, it's they're not great names, I have to say, but at this point it doesn't matter. You know. Doesn't matter all that much. Let's go to Shannon from Austin, who says, I was there live with friends and the atmosphere was so electric. I'm still here as of this writing for Dark Elevation. Dark was taped first. The match of the night was the Coffin Match. Pop of the night, everybody got a great reaction, but Darby, Mox, Jungle Boy on Elevation, and Britt Baker were near the top. But Hangman and Dark Order was incredible. My favorite segment was definitely Page and Omega. If you heard Jesus chants, it was because Wrestling Jesus was in the crowd again.
Yes, he was spotted.
All right. Great long-term dramatic storytelling, and it is memorable. 9 out of 10 show.
Oh, that's cool to hear a live perspective from Texas. Next one here. Man, what a show, and that crowd. Take a bow. It had everything you want in a wrestling show. New Japan strong style. Hometown boy winning at home. Fantastic promos. Solid wrestling. And an ego's edge I never want to see again. 10 hot wives doing the splits out of 10. You know, that's the counter argument.
20?
Yeah, you're right.
5?
It would be. That would another broken scale. That's the argument, though, Way, is that with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, think of all the heat if they had beaten the hometown guy.
Oh, God. Yeah, totally.
Heat.
Yes, absolutely.
They blew it.
Well,
instead, they got a crazy reaction for Ricky Starks, and they wasted the disappointment of seeing the person in their hometown fail.
Well, that said, though, next week it's Lance Archer taking on Jon Moxley in Texas. I mean, I think there stands a good chance that he'll lose.
Maybe not. We'll see.
Maybe not. All right, we got a Muggin who says, a hot crowd is the salt you need in a great recipe. It can make the difference between a decent wrestling show to a damn good wrestling show, and that was what night one of Fyter Fest was in Cedar Park. Moxley versus Anderson set the tone, and Hangman versus Elite segment made the building feel like it was shaking. Ricky Starks got over big time, and the Page Allin Coffin match was chaos. It was a strong show with very little filler that flew by. That's the name they should give it, you know? Especially if you're going to do night 1 and night 2. AEW Salt and AEW Pepper.
So Fyter Fest does not sound that bad when the alternatives are brought out. Okay, MJ. Once upon a time, I stood up for a bunch of badly introduced characters. I said they'd be worthy of rivaling a top faction in AEW. You know, props to MJ, who has never allowed anyone to forget the point he made at the lowest point of Dynamite, which caused Tony Khan to change all of his ideas going into the new year.
MJ is as proud about supporting the Dark Order back then as WH will be about calling out whatever happens in Loki that we'll talk about tomorrow.
Some wanted them banished from the company. Not worth continuing to build them. I'm so proud to have joined the Dark Order upon arrival in 2019 from the perspective of a fan who did buy in when the haters hated. Oh my gosh, MJ, come on. And the Brody era. And now this Elite story being where it is. And Dark Order.
Hold on a second.
You cannot at all MJ, compare.
I want you to call in on Friday to talk about this. But Dark Order was a completely different thing back then. They changed course. They changed the group. And that's why people, I mean, a lot of other things have happened since then, but it's a very different group now than it was back then. They're just the same in name and membership.
It was actually a blessing in disguise that angle was so poorly received, that it was such a clear message of what we don't want, and that Tony Khan, like, he had that week or two off and came back and realized what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses. And it was a changing point for AEW just several months in, because that was the night, December 18th of 2019. It was the one night they legit lost in total viewers and the demo to NXT when Rhea Ripley won the title. And it was by far the worst angle that AEW shot with the main event angle, with the Elite laid out by the Dark Order. And the Dark Order, credit to them, they completely reinvented themselves the next year, but it was by being a completely different act than the one that ended 2019.
And being the Elite.
Yes. He goes on to say, Britt Baker is the new top woman in wrestling. The forbidden door at this level of openness is lovely, and there's no wrestling show on TV that comes close to this level of satisfying time invested week after week. I was there last week in Miami. I recommend everyone go if it's in your area. See you in New York.
Finally, we got a Click who says, overall, I thought this was a really good show. It's crazy how much the crowd makes a difference. The bad. I know I'm in the minority, but I'm just not a fan of Moxley. I find it very hard to get into his matches. He has a great promo, though. And why are we watching Hardy versus Christian in 2021? I had zero desire to see that. I thought the match was good. Yeah. I mean, you can argue that, yeah, maybe not that much anticipation going into it, but I think like having variety on a show is good. And what we got to see was like a really solid, good match between two veterans. He says the good. I'm super excited to see Black in AEW. While Cody wouldn't be my first choice, I'm sure these two will have a great match, and I loved everything about it tonight. Hangman Page's money. Love that he is catching fire again. Really enjoyed Darby versus Page. They have something special in Darby, and I look forward to seeing where they go with him. Of the young core four in MJF, Darby, Jungle Boy, and Sammy, who do you guys see developing into the biggest star for AEW?
I mean, to me, like MJF is there, I think, at this point, and I feel that really it's you can extend this group as well. Like I think there's others that you could put in the mix there, but I look at all four that they're all going to be like pillars of this company if all four stay healthy. They're certainly young enough that you're going to get years and years out of those four that I don't know if it's like necessarily one over the other, but I certainly see Sammy Guevara having, I think where it's different is that everyone saw Sammy Guevara being a top heel, but he will get that heel run at some point, but it's as a babyface that I think is going to be his immediate path.
It will be really interesting to see where they develop. I mean, I feel like in 10 years' time, we'll be talking about very different characters than what we are talking about today, but the raw talent is absolutely there. I'm really interested to see how Jungle Boy evolves beyond the Jungle Boy character. When he starts becoming that kind of like solo breakout top star, what is he going to look like? What is he going to sound like? Again, the raw material is completely there. Same with Darby Allin. I think Darby Allin is like, man, already there. Or at least very close to that level. Like they just have to give him that sort of build that they're giving right now to Hangman Page. The crowd is already ready for it. My biggest question is whether or not how long he can maintain the style that he's doing every single week. That's
it's the most
concerning.
Concerning one that like this is a guy that you just hope that once he is at this level, does his body hold up, because this guy is just punishing himself. I'll also add that it sounds ridiculous today, but there's no doubt in my mind that there will come the time and the angle and the right heel that will allow for MJF to get that babyface run one day.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. I mean, I hope the character never changes from what he is right now. But if he wants to have the crowd cheer for him, like he could do that like immediately.
Yeah, like they have established like enough layers there that you can go a lot of places. And I mean, you ride what's working now, and that's him in this role. But I think there's certainly a babyface run to be had whenever you have that tremendous heel that at the end, like deep down the crowd, to finally this guy's on our side. Like there's like that's just natural for any hot heel that you're in no rush to do, but will be an option one day when the right circumstances are there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for the feedback. It's going to bring an end to the show. Man, this has been a lengthy one.
A lot to talk about. You know what? A lot of feedback for these shows. So, AEW is just like getting right back to it on a Wednesday. How do you think the ratings will be for this one?
They did pretty well last week, and tonight they were going against the NBA Finals, so they did have that factor to tonight's show, at least going against the second hour. But we'll see. I mean, if you put stock in being in front of fans being a factor, you couldn't have asked for a better atmosphere. That if you were tuning in at 8:00, I mean, this was a show that I think grabbed people. Like this was a very like the kind of show that even if you were planning to just tune in for a little bit, I would think you would be sticking around, because this was a very fun show. It was like a party for 2 hours. It was just a very fun show that moved quick, and just the lack of crowd, man, they gave you the best crowd tonight.
Beyond the overall rating, I mean, the ratings pattern, I think, will be just as important to see how Darby and some of these other guys do, with a great start with Moxley and then the rest. Yeah,
man. They did miss the one opportunity tonight that had the Young Bucks been on in the second hour, we could have compared the Young Bucks going against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, I'm sure that's happened.
I'm sure it has at some point. But now it's the Milwaukee Bucks are in a prestigious role.
Who are they playing?
Phoenix.
Okay. All right.
So we're back.
The Bucks versus Penta and Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Book it.
It's too late. They're not going to go against them again. And they blew it. Tonight was their golden opportunity. Gone.
Oh, okay.
All right. We are back. Well, Wai's back on Thursday night, 10 Eastern, a live edition of MCU Later with W.H. Park and Nate Milton, who will be on. Wai and I were guests on the farewell for a couple of months for Marcus Vanderberg, who lost a loser leaves town match that will not be honored, at least for a few more months, because then he'll be returning. But a big Marcus Vanderberg appreciation show. So we stopped by for that. If you want to check out the Kings of Sport, always a fun listen.
It was just fun to hang out and John talking about The Wire with two people who actually have watched the show. Perhaps maybe more discussion between the three of you.
Maybe that's going to be on Wai's watch list.
I will.
You should give it another chance.
Yeah. I watched the first episode, wasn't too into it, but everybody says you kind of have to stick with it a bit longer than that. So maybe I will.
Okay. And then Friday night, we've got Rewind to SmackDown live at 10:15 Eastern for all patrons. SmackDown's got Edge and the Mysterios against Roman Reigns and the Usos. They've announced a fatal four-way with the male participants in the Money in the Bank ladder match, but front and center is a live crowd at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, as fans are back for a WWE broadcast. So we will have no shortage of things to talk about on Friday night. And of course, your calls will be welcome on that show as well. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in live in the Zoom room. And we will be back later this week. Goodbye.